Imagine if all the oceans suddenly became freshwater. Where would you go to quench your thirst? Your kitchen sink, the nearest bar, or the mineral springs in Bergamo, Italy? In the 21st century, finding freshwater usually isn't that difficult. But the truth is, our supply is running out. What if we didn't have to worry about water shortages anymore? What if you could drink and shower as much as you wanted? What if a trip to the well and a trip to the beach were basically the same thing? You might give a lot for that luxury. But how much would it really cost? This is Imagine If Anything, and here's what would happen if all ocean water suddenly became freshwater. Why is the ocean so salty? The first big question we should ask is, why are the oceans salty in the first place? Well, they weren't always like that. About 3.8 billion years ago, Earth's surface cooled enough for water vapor in the atmosphere to condense into liquid, and at that time, the oceans were freshwater. But that didn't last long. Every time it rains, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere dissolves into the falling water. This makes rain slightly acidic. When that rain falls on rocks, it slowly erodes them, dissolving minerals and salts. That water eventually flows into rivers and streams, which carry those minerals straight into the oceans. Add to that the minerals released by underwater volcanoes and hydrothermal vents, and repeat this process continuously for 3.8 billion years. That's a lot of salt. In fact, there's so much salt in the oceans that if it were spread evenly across all the land on Earth, it would form a layer of salt 40 stories tall. Today, about 97% of Earth's water is salty, and that turns out to be very important. What if the oceans became freshwater? At first, freshwater oceans might sound like a dream come true. By 2025, experts estimate that nearly 1/3 of the world will suffer from chronic water shortages. At the current rate of consumption, the global demand for freshwater doubles every 20 years. So turning the oceans into freshwater should be great, right? Not exactly. A salt-free ocean would destroy marine life and dramatically change Earth's climate. And it could make life on our planet nearly impossible. There are around 228,000 known species living in the ocean, with possibly 2 million more yet to be discovered. But if the oceans suddenly became fresh water, most of them would die. Saltwater fish and marine animals evolved to survive in salty environments. They constantly drink seawater and remove excess salt from their bodies. Different species do this in different ways, but the ability to regulate salt is essential for survival in the ocean. Some species, like salmon, can survive in both freshwater and saltwater, but most marine life cannot. That means entire ecosystems would collapse, and that includes ocean algae, which may not sound important, but it absolutely is. Believe it or not, ocean algae are responsible for about half of the photosynthesis on Earth. Photosynthesis is what produces the oxygen we breathe. Without ocean algae, the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere would drop dramatically. At the same time, carbon dioxide levels would rise. This would supercharge the greenhouse effect, making parts of the world unbearably hot. The climate chaos. Our oceans also play a crucial role in regulating the planet's temperature. Ocean currents move warm water from the equator toward the poles, and cold water back toward warmer regions. This circulation helps balance Earth's climate. But salt is essential for this process. Warm water near the equator holds more salt and behaves differently than colder water. In the far north, seawater freezes to form sea ice. When it freezes, the salt is left behind, making the surrounding water denser. That dense water sinks, allowing warmer water from the south to flow north. This continuous circulation keeps the climate relatively stable. But without salt, the entire system collapses. The poles would freeze even faster. Meanwhile, temperatures near the equator would rise dramatically. Extreme weather would become the new normal. Hurricanes would become more frequent and far more deadly. Could humans survive? At this point, Earth's climate would be completely different from what we know today. How long would humans survive? Probably not very long. You might freeze or overheat. You might die in massive natural disasters or slowly starve. Without stable climates and healthy ecosystems, plant life would struggle to survive. And if plants disappear, the entire food chain collapses. Most species on Earth, including humans, would eventually go extinct, because the crops we rely on would simply stop growing. The final lesson. So when we say the saltiness of the oceans is important, we really mean it. Of course, science is all about curiosity, so keep asking questions about our world and everything beyond it, and come back soon for another episode of Imagine If Anything.